Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for inviting me today to discuss what's working and what does not work well in our state voting systems. As you noted, I previously served as the Attorney General of Virginia. Prior to that, I was in Virginia's State Senate for 3 terms. One of those elections was a recount, and as the people of this committee know, that means litigation. That's true in all 50 states, so I've been through those situations as well, and also served in the Department of Homeland Security as the Acting Deputy Secretary. And I would like to make a point that is rarely discussed from that perspective, because the federal government does not have really any role in the execution of elections. However, we do have a role in protecting against foreign interference in elections, and I was involved in that role in 2020. And I would point out a much overlooked fact. We all hear all the time about financial diversification. Don't buy one stock, buy 20 stocks. Well, security can work similarly. America's elections are more secure for having 51 systems than if we had one Washington takeover and one system. The danger to an opponent of attempting to interfere, and I don't mean media interference, I don't mean Facebook ads, I mean actually touching machinery, is much, much higher when they don't really know which states are going to determine the outcome, and they all have different systems. It is easier for us to catch them when they attempt to try to break into a variety of systems than if we had only one system. And we've all seen how effective we are at protecting our own systems. We saw this in 2020. We learned that the Russians had been in our government systems for a year and a half or more, the civilian side. That is a tremendous source of protection of U.S. elections against foreign interference. And again, I'm not talking misinformation here. The interference I'm talking about is actually touching the systems, the computer systems, adjusting outcomes, voter rolls, and so forth. Doesn't mean that's impossible now, but if they can get into one system, they can get into one system. But of 51, that risks America's democracy less than if they could get into one system and there was only one system. It is a very important reason why Washington should never try to centralize elections with one federalized system. I think that's a unique perspective that I don't hear, frankly, mentioned enough, and that is still a relevant benefit of federalism. Perhaps not in a way you're used to thinking of, nonetheless. With respect to UOCAVA and motor voter, I would simply, I'll shorten my time by emphatically agreeing with the specific comments of Secretary Warner. The blackout periods, for instance, the federal government literally getting in the way of states cleaning up their own systems. And this is used often in the lawfare, you heard the Secretary reference, as a way to block cleanup. Los Angeles County recently had to remove 1.2 million bad entries on their voter rolls, and those had been stopped for years and years. Those are places where fraud and confusion and the reduction of confidence can easily hide. The Carter-Baker Commission of 2005 spoke to some of these problems. I would urge this committee and the ACE Act to keep the voluntary approach you have from the federal government to states, but also to clean up UOCAVA, particularly with respect to ID and citizenship, and motor voter with respect to cleaning the rolls and getting out of states' way, frankly, of doing the best job they can. And last but not least, it's nice to hear comments about how we're all against perpetuating falsehoods. It would have been nice to hear that in 2000, 2001, 4, 16, 17, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it seems those sorts of allegations are leveled for pure partisan effect, not to actually clean up our elections.